I say that right as my computer starts to spike. So, okay. Well, thank you for joining us at St. Louis Writers Guild's author series. This is our author series for May. I would just like to say that the author series is our long-standing lecture series that now can be viewed multiple ways. You can view it on the web. You can see the recording later on the web. But we do have a brand new announcement. We're really excited to be here at All on the Same Page Bookstore, and we thank them for hosting us. You'll find us here on the third Thursday of every month doing these, 7 o'clock, so do check for that. Tonight, I have the great honor of sitting here with L.S. Murphy, the author of Reaper and other books that we will get into. And we thank you for having us. Just real quick, L.S. Murphy lives in the greater St. Louis area where she watches Cardinals baseball, reads every book she can find, and weaves tales for teens and adults. When not doing all the above, she tends to her daughter, her husband, and a menagerie of pets. A Reason to Stay, a contemporary romance novella, is available now. And Reaper, her debut young adult novel, just became available this year. She is a co-rep for the Southern Illinois region of the SCBWI, and she's a member of St. Louis Writers Guild, and she is repped by Julia A. Weber. Thank you for joining us tonight. We truly appreciate it, and you can find all her books, and along with the links that'll be here, we'll put the links to her books with this, but you can find out all about her on lsmurphy.com. So without further ado, Linda Murphy.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
No, we appreciate it. So I do have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask you tonight. We'll just talk about it. If you guys have questions out there, text them in the chat box, and we'll hear them here. And if you have questions and you can't get them in that way, feel free to tweet us at STL Writers Guild, and we'll see them that way. So, and if you guys have a question, feel free. All right. So the first, actually, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about Reaper and exactly what it is. I mean, obviously it's a YA novel, but...
Well, Reaper is a young adult paranormal romance. It kind of crosses the line between contemporary and paranormal romance, mixing the genres a little bit, in a sense, focusing mostly on contemporary with bits of paranormal romance in it. And it's about 16-year-old Quincy Amarante who finds out that she's going to become a Grim Reaper when she dies. And she has to go through a Grim Reaper training.
Very cool. Hey, we like Reapers. Nothing wrong with a Reaper.
Death is very in right now.
Yes, it is, actually. So I did want to ask a few questions about you as an author and stuff like that. Do you have a favorite way of interacting with your fans, have you found?
I'm addicted to Twitter.
Addicted to Twitter?
I will talk to anybody on Twitter. I love it. I don't know why. I just pop on, say something, and then I talk to everybody I possibly can. It's just a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, Twitter's a very good advice. So what inspired you to become a writer?
I always wanted to be a writer. I went through a period, in my 20s where I wanted to be everything, but eventually I went back to school, and I didn't know what I wanted to write, but everything I wrote, it didn't feel right. It was like the adult stuff was too dramatic, or, it just didn't feel right. And then I took a class at UMSL, Adolescent Lit, and that introduced me to young adult literature, and I was hooked, and that was it. There was nothing else I was going to do.
Okay. So is that what inspired you then to write for young adults, or is there something else that inspired you to write for young adults?
It was that course. I read a book, I read a couple of books, I'm like, these are great. I'm just totally amazed, because I was like, before I was like, no, kiddie books? I'm not reading no kiddie books. But I read, the one that really put me over the edge was Rats Saw God by Rob Thomas. If you don't know who he is, he's also the creator of Veronica Mars and the TV show Cupid. He's not a singer. But it was one of those books, after I finished reading it, I was like, this is what I want to write, and I wish I would have had this book when I was in high school. It touched me in that way.
Very cool. So, to that end, do you listen to music at all, like, when you write? Do you have a soundtrack for your books or anything like that, or are you more just dead quiet?
I can't do dead quiet. Something's got to be on. Since it's summer, it's Cardinals baseball. But yeah, I listen to music all the time. If I'm writing, it's usually alternative rock, Green Day, Linkin Park. Sometimes I get into 80s hair metal. But when I'm editing, it's usually jazz or something without words, but just nice quiet background noise.
Okay. I'm finding that a lot of writers have a soundtrack for their books. It's intriguing. So, last question of you as a writer. Do you have a favorite literary heroine or hero who has helped inspire you as a writer?
I think just about anybody who's ever put enough courage into write a book and put it out there in the world. It's kind of hard to say because there's so many great writers out there. In high school, I would have told you it was Kurt Vonnegut, and I'm still a huge Vonnegut fan. And I think anybody in high school who reads loves Vonnegut. As I got older, I got into the classics a little bit more. Jane Austen, of course, and Faulkner, but I grew up on the literary canon, so anything that constitute the American literary canon.
Okay, very cool. So about your book, what inspired you to write about reapers?
Well, I wanted to write something that was different.
Okay.
I wanted to write something that I wanted to read, and I was getting a little burnt out on reading paranormal romances that were trilogies, and it seems like everything's a trilogy these days. So I wanted to write a standalone, and I was tired of reading about girls that were orphaned and that they were poor. I mean, it started just to seem like a trope, so I was like, what could I do to the most popular girl in school to make her life just terrible? And I thought, oh, well, let's make her deaf. Well, that's gotta suck if you're 16. So that's kind of where the whole idea came from, and the Quincy was built out of that.
Okay, excellent. So to that end, it is a standalone. You said that you didn't want to write a trilogy.
Yes.
That's impressive. So do you want to keep writing in the romance, paranormal like genre, that YA genre, or do you have future plans for future books?
I have future plans for future books.
Okay.
A few that are kind of along the lines of Reaper, where they're contemporary with the paranormal mixed in, but I'm focusing really on YA contemporary, and I have a few adult romance novellas.
Excellent. So then, how did you go about publishing your book? Obviously, you have an agent, so you started there.
No, actually.
You didn't? Okay.
I got my agent after the fact.
Lovely. I'd love to hear about that.
I believed in the story that much, and I wasn't getting anywhere with agents. And I was getting a lot of compliments and a lot of, positive feedback, but just nothing was catching with anyone. And I thought, well, let me try the small presses. And I found J. Taylor Publishing online, and they wanted it. It just worked out perfectly, and it was the right place for this book.
Excellent. So then how did you get your agent then?
I got my... I signed with Julia last June, I believe it was. I was trolling around and looking on Twitter. And somebody had retweeted her that she was looking for a sports theme YA. And I just happened to have started querying that and sent it to her, and she wanted me, so...
Hey, the stars aligned. Yay, that's
the
exciting.
stars aligned, and I couldn't be happier. She's wonderful.
Okay, excellent. Did anything unexpected happen when you published this? No, when you published Reaper. Anything crazy, unusual, any good stories?
Other than the fact that it got published.
I like that. No, seriously. Did you have any horror stories or anything?
No,
that's great. That's actually.
I mean,
good to hear.
It's such a great experience, and J. Taylor's a wonderful publisher.
Good.
I mean, they're
Excellent.
very, very, very supportive, and if I had any questions, they were easy to contact, got back to me right away. And if you haven't read any of their other books, they've got such a fabulous line of books.
Excellent. Well, I have a feeling a lot of people are Googling J. Taylor right now.
I do recommend them.
I guess now I'd like to ask you a few questions about writing, since this is for St. Louis Writers Guild, and we're always interested in writing. So, do you have a process when you write? Do you write at the same time every day, or just when the spirit moves you, or when the Reaper moves you?
When the Reaper moves you, standing over me. I don't write at the same time every day, because I do have a full-time job and a family, and it's very difficult. I fit it in whenever I can, and but I have gotten into a system now where I am an outliner. I used to not be an outliner, and it makes it so much easier for me because I can outline. If I have an outline, even if I stray from it, I know where I'm going, and it makes it easier to write and easier to edit as I go.
Okay, so you didn't used to be an outliner, so you used to just see to the pants, just kind of write?
Yeah.
Was Reaper outlined at all?
Reaper was outlined, and it is nowhere near what the outline used to be.
Okay.
Completely different.
Excellent. So, what's the most important lesson you've learned as a writer then, in terms of what you've incorporated into your books?
Well, besides not giving up.
That's important.
That's very important. I think the most important thing is you need a critique partner, and you need to find the right critique partner and the right critique group, because there are critique groups out there who they don't understand that critiquing is not negative feedback. And I've heard a lot of horror stories, and I was terrified to find a critique group, but that's how I found SCBWI, and it was the best thing I ever could have done.
For those of you who don't know, can you talk just a little bit about SCBWI?
SCBWI is the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators.
Oh, love that one.
I know. It took me forever to get the initials in the right order. Mm-hmm. But it is a nationwide, well, actually, it's worldwide, writers, children's book illustrators, writers, YA, anything that has to do with children's literature organization. They have critique groups all over the area, all over the nation. You have state reps, network reps. You can go on scbwi.org for more information, but it was, for me, it was a life-changing decision to join them, and it really worked out in my favor, obviously.
Excellent. Yeah, they are great, and I do highly recommend them, so do check them out. If you are a children's author, if you're not a children's author, there are probably organizations in the genre you're writing in. So what is the hardest for you? Plotting, dialogue, setting, character, any of those? None
Setting.
Of those? Setting, okay.
Setting, description. I like to just throw it all out there. I'm not very descriptive in my writing.
Okay.
In my opinion, if you read the wall is blue, then the wall's blue. You don't need 25 different descriptions of how different colors the wall is blue. I mean, it's going to be my kind of blue. It's going to be blue, a different blue for you. So that's just kind of how I go. So I get a little bit of slack for that. But
nothing wrong with that. So then, let me ask you about this. Setting tends to fall under world building. So, how did you develop the world of your book? And if you're not using a big description, how are you imparting that world onto your reader?
Well, I do a little research. Reaper is set in Southern California. Never been there. I Google pictures, and I just kind of throw out little tiny things like Reaper is near the mountains. It's not near the ocean, so you know that the mountains are there, and talking about snow, and just tiny little things like that.
Okay. That's a great way of setting up your world. So I have to ask, which line gives you the most trouble, the first line or the last line?
Oh, the first line.
The first line?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. The first line of Reaper is the original last line of the first chapter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
We cut that whole thing out.
any of the first chapter make it in, or none of it?
A little bit, but a little later on. I had to mix it in a little later on. But.
Kill your darlings. That's good advice, I
Well, reap them.
Yes, reap them. I like that. All right. So do you have any advice for writers who are trying to find their voice? Because,
practice makes perfect.
Practice. Is yours in third or first?
First.
Okay. Do you like writing that? Are you comfortable with first?
I do. I have a hard time writing in third person.
Okay.
I feel like I'm outlining. I do. I have a hard time getting the emotions into a third person. I'm working on something right now. It's third person. I'm like, it just doesn't feel right. I'm tempted to change it and drop all 30,000 words. Go to first person.
Okay, so you're more comfortable in first then? Do you find that's your voice, like imparting your character's voice through the first person, or is it just that that's where you feel comfortable?
I feel like I can get in touch with the main characters better that way, in the first person, because then I feel like I'm telling their story, or like they're telling their story. A third person, I feel like I'm telling their story, and it never sits right with me. But there are a lot of great novels in third person, and they make me jealous. They really do, because I wish I could do it.
Excellent. So my next question to you then would be on the whole first person bandwagon there. If in terms of your genre, which is YA contemporary romance, a lot of that is in first person. Do you consider yourself riding that kind of trend, or is it just that really that's your voice and you enjoy it?
I think it depends on the story.
Okay.
I think with me, it's just I'm more comfortable writing in that way. Reaper, for example, is first person present tense, which started to seem like a trend. My next book that my agent's submitting, that's first person too, but it's past tense.
Okay.
I think it just depends on the voice of the character.
I like that. I agree. So let me ask you that. That actually brings up an excellent point. In terms of your tense, did you get any flack for having it in the present tense? Because past tense is like the the winner, so to speak. I think any of these books around it should probably be a past tense.
No, actually, I never really got any comments about that.
Nice.
Surprisingly.
Okay.
Now that I think about it.
Excellent. Oh, I like that because I'm all for expanding out the way we write, so I enjoy that. So do you have? How much fact is there? How much fact is in your fiction? So, is it a pretty factual book, or is it going completely off, Wikipedia and going way far from anything in reality?
Wait, Wikipedia is not all fact?
No.
Oh man.
You're not even allowed to source it.
The things you learn these days, I'm telling you. No. There's things in there that are
factual, yes.
Obviously. I didn't make up California. I wish I did. Could you imagine? If I copyrighted California, that'd be awesome.
You wouldn't have to be a writer, that's for sure.
There are little tiny things like people I went to high school with. They're like, I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
There's a locker room scene, and somebody emailed me. They're like, that's our locker room in high school. I'm like, yeah. I wasn't feeling very creative, so I just went by the past. But...
Okay, so you do have other books. I'd like to give you a chance to talk about those, beyond Reaper. So you have A Reason to Stay, which is this contemporary romance novella. Mm-hmm. And then you have something new on the horizon we're not allowed to talk about yet, or are you allowed to talk about it?
I'm allowed to talk about it.
Okay.
I think.
Well,
I am.
Can you talk about A Reason to Stay and then your new?
A Reason to Stay is I just wanted to write something short just for fun. Okay. So I thought, well, let's try an adult romance. And I just happened to find a publisher for it, so it worked out really well. But it's about a woman, Juliana, who comes home after leaving her small town in a hurry 10 years ago. And she left someone behind. So it's a reconciliation of their past, their present, and everything that went on between them.
Okay.
Without spoiling it.
Yes, don't spoil. You want people to read it.
It's short. It's hard not to spoil it.
Okay. Well, you can find the link to it if you're interested, so you can find out all about what she's not spoiling. So, but the new one, so I want to give you a chance to talk about that, because there's something exciting that you just announced.
Which one?
Your latest.
One More Day?
Yes.
The anthology?
Yes.
Yes, that's through J. Taylor Publishing. And I am surprised the anthologies are not bigger. Because as a writer, they're a wonderful way, if you sit down and read an anthology, of voice to study how different ideas, and this anthology is going to be incredible. It's a strictly YA anthology, so everything is geared towards young adults, but it's what if time stopped and you were the only person that could get it to start again?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's intriguing.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's really intriguing. I can't wait to get my hands on the other stories to see what everybody else came up with.
Okay,
it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be available in paperback and in ebook, and it releases December 3rd.
Very cool. So be on the lookout for that. I do want to give you a chance. I want to ask you about YA. You write a lot of YA. Mm-hmm. How do you define YA in terms of where you fit it in as a genre? I don't just mean age group, but I mean, what exactly do you define as YA?
Well, YA is all about the main character.
Yeah.
Although there are some adult novels that have main characters who would actually fall into YA, but the style that they're written in is definitely more literary. But YA to me is your character is anywhere from 14 to 18. If your character is 19, 20, 21, then you're starting to cross into the new adult that's coming out that nobody knows what it is yet, really.
Yes. So, to that end, do you feel that there's a certain journey that the character has to take in order for it to be YA or any of that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we can all talk about our high school days and be like, oh, that's YA. It doesn't mean it was interesting. So the character has to have something happen to them to make it has, most of the time it's an inciting incident and then how they resolve that.
Okay.
I think one of the big things that people forget, especially when it comes to children's literature, is that kids read up. So you have 14-year-olds that are reading about 15, 16, 17-year-olds. You've got, your 10-year-olds are reading about the middle. They want to read what's going to happen to them next. And I think that's a big thing with the young adult.
Okay. And I would agree with you. Young adult, I don't know. It dominates the market. I'm sure you're enjoying that domination with Reaper. But I do agree that it's about a journey of their journey and the character's journey. More so than an age.
I think a lot of adults read young adult because there's that bit of innocence that we don't have anymore because we're so jaded. I mean, we got to pay our bills.
Yes. Yeah, YA never has to pay bills. It's never a feature in YA novels. Excellent. Well, let me ask real quick. Do we have any questions coming out there from the Twitterverse or from the chat boxes?
Nothing here.
Okay. Do we have anyone here who would like to ask a question?
Yes, if you don't mind.
No.
A little bit ago you were talking about, with Reaper, getting back to Reaper, that you had outlined it from the start, but then it didn't end up like the outline. Mm-hmm. What happened? How did it take off?
Quincy hated me.
Quincy hated you?
Yeah, she was very hard to write.
Why was that?
Quincy's a very, very hard character to relate to in the beginning because she is not nice. She's not full bore Heathers, but she's close. And she goes from being who she thinks she's supposed to be to who she really is, and that's her main journey is to really rediscover who she is. And in the beginning, she fought me, and she fought me, and fought me, and fought me. I rewrote it like 3 or 4 times, literally printing it out and retyping the entire thing.
So your original outline kind of had her as a nicer person?
No.
No.
No. It was just getting to know her.
Okay.
And it sounds weird, but these characters sometimes they're like, no, I'm not going to tell you anything. You got to figure it out on your own. It's like, really? Can you just tell me so I can write the book?
One more question about Reaper. You think in terms of the classic Grim Reaper and everything, and now you're putting it into a young teenage female body type of thing, but are there aspects of horror in your book?
Kind of. She has to go on a training with Forsyth, who is her 5 times great-grandfather. I think that's how it calculated out. And so she goes and sees a lot of death. And it's quite terrifying in many ways. So I balance it out with a lot of bad jokes.
Nothing wrong with that. You need humor in YA. Humor has to be there.
You mentioned the rewriting. When you look at how long it took, like from when you first had the concept until it finally got published and was out, how long did that take?
6 years.
6 years.
Mm-hmm. I usually have my ideas and then I write them all down, jot them down, and throw them in a box, and then come back to them later. So, I mean, it's not 6 straight years. Mm-hmm. There was another hidden book written in there somewhere. Hidden under the bed.
That's what drawers are for.
Yes, exactly.
So how long did it take you to actually write Reaper then? The actual writing time?
Probably writing the first draft originally took me about 8 weeks.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is that pretty typical for you to write a draft in 8 weeks?
Depends on how much time I have.
Okay. That's impressive. Mm-hmm. That's exciting.
Yeah. The one I recently submitted to my agent, that took me about 6 months to write, and I was editing as I went.
Okay.
So it was a pretty solid draft when it was done, and I didn't have a lot of changes that I made before I sent it to her.
That's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, yes.
So let me ask you then, is there anything you want to talk about that's coming in the future for you? I mean, I know you have a book signing this Saturday, but anything else coming in the pipe?
I just signed a contract with Untitled Publishing.
Wow.
For another short romance, adult romance. So
very cool.
That'll be released sometime.
Excellent. All right. Well, we thank you so much for joining us tonight. Unless we have any other questions coming in, we will probably end it off there. I would just like to thank L.S. Murphy for joining us tonight. Truly appreciate it. We'll do these things every month, but like I said, you can find this on the web. And all of the links to her books and stuff will be accompanying this video, along with the articles and stuff that we'll put on about it. But seriously, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This has been L.S. Murphy, author of Reaper. And yet again, we thank All on the Same Page Bookstore for hosting us tonight. So do check them out. Stop by. You can find her book here from this point forward. So enjoy. Have a great night. And thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.